A struggling cowboy found a female Seminole outcast tied to a tree. The sign read, "The whites call it." The cowboy had learned to wake before the sun, not because he wanted to, but because the day demanded it. Out on the open land, waiting too long meant losing light, losing time, and sometimes losing hope. He was not an old man, but life had pressed heavy lines into his face. His clothes were worn thin from years of dust, rain, and hard riding. His boots had been repaired so many times that the leather no longer matched, yet he kept wearing them because new ones cost money he did not have. Once, he had dreamed of owning a large herd and a small house with a strong fence. Now, he was just trying to survive. Drought had taken most of his cattle. A bad deal with a land agent had taken the rest. People passed him on the road without noticing, or worse, they noticed and looked away. In a land that praised strength and success, there was little kindness left for men who had fallen behind. That morning, he saddled his horse slowly, feeling the ache in his back as he tightened the strap. The horse was old too, patient and calm, as if it understood struggle better than most humans. A smaller horse had gone missing the night before, likely wandered off toward the wooded edge of the land. Losing it would hurt more than his pride. It was one of the few things he still owned outright. The land changed as he rode. Open plains gave way to scattered trees and uneven ground. The air felt heavier there, quieter in a way that made him uneasy. Birds were silent. Even the wind seemed careful. He followed faint hoof marks, his eyes trained to notice small signs most people missed. That was when he saw the tree. At first it was just another shape in the distance. Then he noticed something hanging from it, a board. Rough wood nailed crookedly, swinging slightly as the breeze touched it. His horse slowed on its own, sensing his tension. As he moved closer, words came into view, scratched in dark paint. The writing was uneven, rushed, and angry. It read, "The whites call it," and then nothing more. The sentence stopped unfinished, as if whoever wrote it did not care to explain further. His stomach tightened. He had seen signs like this before, usually warning people away from land or marking places where cruelty had already happened. He thought about turning back. He had learned long ago that trouble often found men who went looking for it. Then he saw her. She was tied to the tree, her hands bound above her head with rough rope. Her feet barely touched the ground. Her clothes were torn and dirty, and her dark hair fell around her face in tangled strands. Her head was lowered, and for a moment he could not tell if she was even alive. The cowboy froze. His first thought was fear, not of her, but of what this meant. Whoever had done this might still be nearby. Getting involved could bring danger he was not prepared for. He was alone, far from help, with nothing but a tired horse and an old revolver that might not even fire. He swallowed and forced himself to breathe. Slowly, carefully, he moved closer. A branch snapped under his boot and her head lifted slightly. Her eyes opened, dark and alert despite her condition. She did not speak. She did not beg. She only watched him, her expression guarded, as if she had learned that words often made things worse. Up close he could see the marks on her wrists where the rope had rubbed her skin raw. Her face showed exhaustion but also strength. This was not someone who had given up, even if her body was failing. She was Seminole. He could tell by her features and the small details in her clothing that had not been fully stripped away. His chest tightened again. He knew enough about the world to understand what that meant. Seminole people were being pushed, hunted, and blamed for things they had no control over. Some settlers treated them like obstacles instead of humans. The sign above her head suddenly felt heavier. "The whites call it," the words echoed in his mind. Call it what? Justice. Order. Safety, he had heard those excuses before. They were often used to hide cruelty behind important-sounding language. He looked around, scanning the trees. No movement, no voices, only the slow creak of rope and wood. She shifted slightly, wincing in pain. Still, she said nothing. The cowboy felt a familiar weight settle in his chest. It was the same feeling he had when he lost his land, when neighbors turned away instead of helping. That quiet understanding of what it meant to be left alone when the world decided you no longer mattered. He thought about riding away. It would be easy. He could tell himself it was none of his business, that he was just one man trying to survive, that helping her could cost him his life. But then he thought about the nights he spent staring at the sky, wondering when he had stopped being someone who did the right thing. He dismounted slowly, keeping his movements calm so he would not frighten her. His hands were visible, empty. He took a few careful steps forward. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly. His voice sounded strange in the still air. He did not know if she understood his words, but she understood his tone. Her eyes never left him. He reached the tree and examined the knots. Whoever tied them had not cared about comfort, only control. His fingers hesitated over the rope. Cutting it would be a clear choice, one he could not take back. "What happened to you?" he asked, though he did not expect an answer. She closed her eyes briefly as if gathering strength. When she opened them again, there was anger there, but also something else, weariness perhaps. She shook her head slightly. The cowboy exhaled slowly. He looked up once more at the sign. The unfinished words felt like an accusation, not just against those who tied her there, but against anyone who might walk away. He reached for his knife. At that moment, he knew his life was about to change, whether he wanted it to or not. He was no longer just a struggling cowboy looking for a lost horse. He was a witness. And once you see something like this, pretending you didn't is its own kind of wrongdoing. The rope fibers were rough under his blade. He paused one last time, listening to the land, to his instincts, to the quiet voice inside him that still believed decency mattered. Then he began to cut. The rope loosened slowly, fiber by fiber, until it finally gave way. The woman's arms dropped at once, and her knees buckled. The cowboy stepped forward quickly and caught her before she fell hard against the ground. She was lighter than he expected, almost fragile, yet there was a tense strength in the way her body reacted, ready to pull away if needed. He eased her down gently, letting her sit against the tree. She breathed deeply, her shoulders shaking as blood returned to her arms. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was heavy, filled with things that could not yet be said. She pulled her hands close to her chest, rubbing her wrists slowly. The skin was red and swollen. The cowboy tore a strip from the edge of his worn shirt and offered it to her. He did not move too close, only held it out so she could decide. After a pause, she took it. Her fingers trembled as she wrapped the cloth around one wrist, then the other. She worked carefully, as if pain had taught her patience. When she finished, she looked up at him again. Her eyes were sharp, searching his face for truth or danger. "You could have left," she said at last. Her voice was quiet but firm. She spoke English slowly, with an accent shaped by another language beneath it. "I know," he replied. "Why didn't you?" The question stayed between them. He could have given many answers. He could have said it was wrong to leave someone like that. He could have said he remembered what it felt like to be powerless. Instead, he chose honesty in its simplest form. "I couldn't," he said. She studied him a moment longer, then looked away toward the trees. Her shoulders relaxed just a little, though her body remained guarded. The cowboy glanced back toward the sign. The unfinished words bothered him. They felt like an open wound. He reached up and pulled the board loose from the nail. It fell to the ground with a dull sound. He turned it over, but there was nothing written on the other side. "Someone wanted you to be seen," he said quietly. She nodded. "They wanted others to understand what I am to them." "And what's that?" he asked. She hesitated, then spoke without anger, as if repeating something she had heard too many times. "A problem, something to remove." He swallowed. "You're not." She gave a small, tired smile. "That depends on who you ask." He helped her to her feet slowly. She leaned against the tree for balance, her legs weak from standing so long. He offered his arm, and after a moment's pause, she accepted it. They moved a short distance away from the tree and sat on a fallen log. The forest felt different now, less threatening, though the danger had not vanished. The cowboy stayed alert, listening for sounds that did not belong. "You hurt?" he asked. "Yes," she answered, "but I am alive." He nodded. That seemed to matter most. After a while she spoke again. "They said I no longer belonged." "Who did?" "Everyone," she said. "My people were forced to move. I stayed behind to care for my mother. She passed during the cold season. After that I had no protection. To settlers I was an enemy. To my own people I was a reminder of what they lost." The cowboy listened carefully. He had heard stories like this, though never from someone who lived them. They were often told around fires, turned into warnings or excuses. Hearing it now felt different. It felt real. "They found me near the river," she continued. "They said I was trespassing, that I was stealing. I was doing neither." He clenched his jaw. "People like to find reasons." She looked at him. "You do not." He shook his head. "I've had reasons used against me too." She seemed surprised by that. "You?" He let out a short breath. "Lost land, lost work, lost standing. Doesn't take much for people to decide you're no longer worth anything." She considered his words, then nodded slowly. "Then you understand being cast aside." "I do," he said. They sat quietly for a few minutes. The forest sound slowly returned, birds calling, leaves shifting. Life moved on, even when people were broken inside it. "My name is Nea," she said suddenly. He looked at her, surprised by the trust in that simple act. "I'm Caleb." She repeated his name softly, as if testing it. Then she looked at the ground. "They tied me there this morning, said someone would come by eventually, that the sign would explain enough." Caleb's eyes drifted back to the broken board. "Explain what?" "That I am not worth saving," she said. He felt anger rise in him, sharp and unwelcome. "They were wrong." Nea met his gaze. This time she did not look away. "You cut the rope, that changes things." "It does," he agreed, "for both of us." She understood what he meant. Whoever had done this would notice she was gone. Questions would follow, blame might too. "I cannot go back," she said. "Not to the river, not to the roads." "I know," Caleb replied. They both knew that staying where they were was not safe either. The land was open, exposed. "I have a camp," he said after a moment. "Not far, it's simple, but you can rest there, get strength back." She hesitated. Her eyes searched his again, weighing risk against exhaustion. "I will go," she said finally. "But if you try to control where I go next, I will leave." "That's fair," he said. "I'm not here to own your choices." That answer seemed to settle something inside her. He helped her stand, then led his horse closer. The animal lowered its head calmly, sensing no threat. Nea watched it with curiosity. "You trust it?" she asked. "With my life," Caleb said. "It's been kinder to me than most people." She smiled faintly at that. The walk to the camp was slow. Nea moved carefully, favoring one leg. Caleb stayed close without crowding her. They spoke little, but the silence between them felt different now, less heavy, more watchful. As they walked, Nea spoke again. "They call this place many names," she said. "They rename land as if it erases those who came before." Caleb nodded. "I've seen maps change faster than people's hearts." She looked at him, thoughtful. "You speak like someone who notices things." "Notice too late sometimes," he replied. When they reached the camp, it was nothing more than a small fire pit, a bedroll, and a few supplies tucked under canvas. Still, it was shelter. Nea lowered herself onto the bedroll with relief. Caleb handed her water. She drank slowly, carefully, as if savoring every swallow. As the sun dipped lower, shadows stretched across the ground. Caleb sat nearby, keeping watch. He felt the weight of what he had done settle in fully now. Saving her was only the beginning. The world outside this small clearing was still dangerous. Nea lay back, staring up at the sky. "When they tied me there," she said quietly, "I thought no one would stop." Caleb looked at her. "Someone did." She turned her head toward him. "Yes, and that means something." The fire crackled softly between them. Two outcasts, brought together by cruelty they did not choose, sitting in the fragile safety of a shared moment. Neither knew what tomorrow would bring. But for now, the rope was gone, the sign was broken, and the night held the promise of rest. And in a land that often offered none, that was enough to keep hope alive. At least for one more day, morning came slowly, as if the land itself was unsure whether to wake. A thin mist hung low between the trees, and the fire Caleb had kept alive through the night had burned down to soft red embers. Birds began calling one by one, careful at first, then louder, as if testing whether the world was safe again. Naya stirred on the bedroll. She sat up slowly, her movements stiff. Caleb noticed right away and stood, keeping a respectful distance. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Better than yesterday," she said. "Not whole, but standing." She accepted them with a small nod. As she ate, her eyes moved constantly, taking in the camp, the trees, the open spaces between them. Caleb understood that look. It was the look of someone who had learned not to relax, even when tired. "We can't stay here long," he said gently. "It's too close to the road." Still, this time felt different. He was not just moving for himself now. As they prepared to leave, Naya stood and tested her balance. She winced but stayed upright. "I can walk," she said firmly. "I won't argue," Caleb replied. "But we'll take it slow." He kept listening for sounds that did not belong, footsteps too steady, voices too close. After some time, Naya spoke. "Why do you live alone?" "Because it's simpler," he said at last. "People expect less from you when you're alone." Sweat gathered at Caleb's brow, but he did not complain. Naya noticed and slowed her pace slightly. "You could have taken me to a town," she said. He shook his head. "Not safe. Too many questions, too many eyes." "Are you safe anywhere?" She washed her hands and face slowly, as if the water itself brought some peace. "This reminds me of home," she said quietly. "Where was that?" he asked. "Near water," she replied. "Always near water." As they rested, Caleb noticed marks on the ground nearby. Footprints, not old, his body tensed. "Naya," he said softly, "we need to move." He pointed upstream. "That way it's harder to follow." If he made a wrong choice, they would both pay for it. After a long while, they reached higher ground where the trees grew closer together. Caleb finally stopped and listened. Nothing, only wind and birds. Naya leaned against a tree, breathing hard. "They're close," she said. "Yes," he answered, "but not close enough." Naya ate carefully, her strength slowly returning. "I was not always alone," she said suddenly. He looked at her, giving her space to continue. "I had family, a place, stories we told at night," she said. "When people were forced away, everything broke. Some left, some stayed. I stayed too long." The roof leaned, but it was still standing. "This will do for tonight," Caleb said. Inside, it smelled of dust and old leaves. Still, it was shelter. Caleb checked the corners, then stepped back. "You rest," he said. "I'll keep watch." The forest darkened, shadows stretching long and deep. Caleb sat near the doorway listening. Every sound made his muscles tighten. He thought of the sign again, of how close he had come to riding past. Behind him, Naya spoke softly. "If you had not come." Later, when the fire burned low and sleep pressed heavy on his eyes, Caleb allowed himself to rest. Not deeply, not fully, but enough. For the first time in a long while, he did not feel completely alone. Just before dawn, a sound woke him. Not loud, careful. He rose slowly, signaling Naya to stay still. His hand closed around the stick he used for walking, the only thing close enough to defend with if needed. A shape moved beyond the trees, then another. Voices, low and distant. Caleb's chest tightened. They had been followed. He turned back to Naya. She was already awake, eyes clear, fear controlled. "We move," she whispered. He nodded. They slipped out the back of the cabin, feet light against the ground. The forest seemed to hold its breath as they passed. Every step mattered. Every sound felt too loud. They did not stop until the sun rose fully, spilling light across the hills. When they finally paused, both were shaking from effort and relief. Naya looked at Caleb, something fierce in her expression now. They wanted to erase me, she said. They failed. Whatever lay ahead would not be simple. But it would be faced with open eyes, steady steps, and the quiet understanding that survival was not just about staying alive. It was about holding on to who you were, even when the world tried to take that away. The land opened up as they moved farther from the woods. Tall grass rolled like waves under the morning light, and the air felt wider, less heavy. Still, Caleb did not relax. Open land could be just as dangerous as thick trees. There was nowhere to hide if trouble came too close. They walked for hours, stopping only when Naya needed rest. Her steps were steadier now, though pain still followed her like a shadow. Caleb watched carefully, ready to slow down whenever she showed signs of strain. By midday, they reached a low ridge overlooking a quiet valley. From there they could see far in every direction. No smoke, no movement, just land and sky meeting in the distance. "We'll rest here," Caleb said, "just for a bit." Naya sat beside him, pulling her knees close. The wind lifted her hair gently, and for a moment she closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the sun settle into her bones. "This place feels honest," she said. "Nothing hidden." Caleb nodded. "That's why I like high ground." They shared what little food remained. It was not much, but hunger had taught them both how to be patient. After a while, Naya spoke again. "When I was young, elders said land remembers people, even after they are gone." Caleb looked out across the valley. "I hope that's true." "It is," she said. "But land also remembers harm." He was quiet for a moment. "Then it remembers a lot." She did not disagree. As the afternoon passed, they talked more than before. Not about danger or plans, but about smaller things. Naya spoke of songs her mother used to hum while working. Caleb spoke of riding long distances just to watch storms roll in. These small pieces of life felt important, like proof that they were more than what had happened to them. "You don't speak like most settlers," Naya said at one point. Caleb shrugged. "I don't fit well with most of them." "That makes two of us," she replied. As the sun lowered, Caleb made a decision. "There's a place farther south," he said. "Not a town, more like a gathering point. Traders pass through sometimes. People don't ask many questions." "Is it safe?" Naya asked. "Safe enough," he answered honestly. "Nothing is perfect." She thought for a moment, then nodded. "Lead the way." They reached the edge of the valley just as the light softened into evening. Caleb found a shallow dip in the land and set up a small camp, careful to keep it low and unseen. The fire was small, barely more than glowing coals. As darkness settled, the stars came out, clear and bright. Naya lay back, watching them. "My mother used to say the stars are holes in the sky," she said. "Light from another place shining through." Caleb smiled faintly. "I like that." They sat in silence, comfortable now, though still alert. Trust had not come all at once. It had grown slowly, like a plant pushing through hard ground. Later that night, Naya broke the quiet. "When you found me," she said, "did you ever think about leaving?" He did not pretend otherwise. "Yes." She turned her head toward him. "Why stay?" He looked at the fire, watching the embers glow. "Because I knew what it felt like to hope someone would stop." She nodded, understanding more than words could explain. The next morning, clouds gathered early, gray and heavy. The air smelled of coming rain. They packed quickly and moved on, knowing that weather could hide their trail or make it harder depending on how it fell. Rain began gently, then stronger. It soaked their clothes and turned the ground slick. Still, Caleb welcomed it. Rain erased tracks and cooled the land. They walked through it without complaint, heads down, steps careful. When they reached a cluster of trees, Caleb led them beneath the thick branches. "We'll wait it out," he said. As they rested, Naya shivered. Caleb hesitated only a moment before offering his spare jacket. She accepted it quietly. "Thank you," she said. "You'd do the same," he replied. She gave a small smile. "Yes, I would." When the rain eased, the world felt fresh, washed clean. The sky lightened and a thin beam of sunlight broke through the clouds. They continued south, and by late afternoon they saw signs of human presence: old wagon ruts, broken fence posts, footprints of many kinds. Caleb slowed. "We're close now." Naya's shoulders tensed. "People?" "Yes," he said, "but not the kind who tied ropes." They approached carefully. The place was not much to look at, just a wide clearing with a few rough shelters and wagons parked in no clear order. Smoke drifted lazily upward. Voices carried on the air, calm, unhurried. As they entered the edge of the clearing, a few heads turned. Eyes followed them, curious but not hostile. An older woman stepped forward. Her hair was silver, her posture straight. "Travelers?" she asked. "Yes," Caleb replied, "looking to rest." The woman studied them both. Her gaze lingered on Naya, not with judgment but with recognition. "You're welcome," she said at last, "as long as you respect the space." "We will," Naya said quietly. They were given a corner near a wagon, nothing special but enough. Caleb felt tension ease slightly. This place did not feel cruel. It felt tired but fair. As evening came, people shared food and quiet talk. No one asked too many questions. Stories were exchanged but not demanded. Naya watched closely, learning the rhythm of the place. "They live between rules," she said softly. "Yes," Caleb replied, "that's why it works." Later, as the fire burned low, a young man approached them. "You're heading south?" he asked. "Yes," Caleb answered carefully. "There's talk of patrols farther north," the man said. "People watching roads." Naya's hand tightened slightly. "Thank you for telling us," Caleb said. When the man left, Naya exhaled. "They're still looking." "Maybe," Caleb said, "but we're not where they expect." That night, Naya slept deeper than before. Caleb stayed awake longer, watching the stars, listening to the soft sounds of people settling in. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future that did not feel empty. The next morning, Naya woke with a different energy. She moved with purpose, her eyes brighter. "I've been thinking," she said as they prepared to leave. "About what?" Caleb asked. "About not just running," she replied. "About choosing where I stand." He considered her words. "What does that look like?" "I don't know yet," she admitted. "But I know I don't want to disappear." Caleb nodded slowly. "You shouldn't have to." They left the gathering place just after sunrise, heading toward open land once more. This time their steps felt less desperate, more deliberate. As they walked, Naya stopped suddenly and turned to face him. "You didn't save me so I could hide forever," she said. "No," he agreed. "And you didn't walk with me just to escape your past," she added. He looked at her, surprised by how clearly she saw him. "No," he said again. She smiled, strong and certain. "Then whatever comes next, we face it awake." Caleb returned the smile. "Together?" "Yes," she said, "together for now." They continued forward, two people shaped by loss but guided by choice. The world ahead was uncertain, filled with risk and challenge. But it was also wide, and for the first time in a long while, neither of them felt like turning back. The land stretched before them, marked by memory and possibility. And as they walked on, the past loosened its grip, not forgotten, not erased, but no longer in control. The road ahead felt different now. It was still uncertain, still marked by risk, but it no longer felt like an escape. It felt like a direction. Caleb and Naya walked side by side, not rushed, not careless, but steady. The land around them shifted slowly, grass giving way to scattered trees, then opening again into wide fields where the sky seemed endless. They spoke less as they traveled, but the silence was no longer empty. It was filled with shared understanding. Each step carried choice, not fear. By the third day, they reached a place where the land met water again. A wide river moved calmly, reflecting the sky like a mirror. Naya stopped at its edge, her breath catching. "This is where paths meet," she said softly. "People pass through, but few stay." Caleb studied the area. There were signs of life, old fire pits, footprints, pieces of wood shaped by hands. But there was also space, room to decide. "We don't have to cross," he said, "or we can, it's your call." She appreciated that he never told her what to do, only what was possible. I want to stay for a while, she said. Not hide, just exist. He nodded. Then we stay. They built a small shelter near the trees, careful to keep it simple. Nothing permanent, nothing that claimed ownership of the land. Just enough to rest, to think, to breathe. Days passed slowly. They gathered food, repaired clothing, and learned the patterns of the river. Caleb fished. Nea collected plants she recognized, teaching him which ones were useful and which were not. At night, they sat by a low fire and talked. Not always about the past, but sometimes about what might come next. I don't want revenge, Nea said one evening. I want truth. Caleb looked into the fire. Truth scares people more than anger. Yes, she agreed, but it also lasts longer. One morning, travelers appeared on the far bank. A small group, cautious but curious. They waved. Caleb returned the gesture. The travelers crossed the river slowly, keeping distance, reading the situation. They spoke briefly. Simple exchanges, where they came from, where they were headed. Nothing too personal. Before leaving, one of them looked at Nea and said, "People are starting to talk." Not the way they used to, Nea met their eyes. Talking is a start. After they left, Caleb noticed something change in her posture. She stood taller, more grounded. "You're being seen," he said. "Yes," she replied, "on my own terms." As weeks passed, others came and went. Some stayed briefly. Some shared stories. Some listened. Nea spoke when she wanted to. She did not explain herself to everyone. She did not need to. One afternoon, a man arrived alone. His clothes marked him as someone who followed rules closely. He stood stiff, uncertain. "I heard there was a Seminole woman here," he said. Nea stepped forward before Caleb could speak. Her voice was calm. "I am here," she said. "If you came to cause harm, you should turn back." The man hesitated. Then he lowered his eyes. "I came to listen." She studied him carefully, then nodded once. They spoke for a long time by the river. Caleb stayed nearby but did not interrupt. When the man finally left, Nea looked lighter, as if something heavy had been set down. "Did it help?" Caleb asked. "Yes," she said. "Because I spoke without fear." That night, Caleb realized something important. He had come here thinking he was protecting someone, but Nea did not need protection anymore. She needed space, and she had claimed it. A few days later, Caleb told her he might leave soon. She looked at him, not surprised. "You don't belong to one place," she said. "No," he admitted, "but I needed to stop running." "And now?" she asked. "Now I know I can walk forward," he said. She smiled. "Then you've learned what I learned too." On his last morning there, the sky was clear. Caleb packed his few belongings. Nea walked with him to the edge of the river. "You changed my life," she said. He shook his head. "You did that yourself." She reached out and placed a small carved stone in his hand. "So you remember." He closed his fingers around it. "I will." They stood quietly for a moment, two lives that had crossed at the right time. As Caleb walked away, he did not feel loss. He felt respect. Nea watched him go, then turned back toward the river, toward the people who were beginning to see her not as a label but as a voice. The land held their stories now, not tied to a tree, not written on a sign, but carried forward through choice, dignity, and the simple courage to stand. And that was enough.